All right, today we're diving into something that could totally transform the way we learn. It's called Agentic AI. We're going to unpack what it is, see how it's already popping up in classrooms, and then get into the really big questions it's forcing us to ask about the future of education. I mean, seriously, have you ever just wished there was some kind of personal guide for students? You know, a little voice that could explain tricky concepts or quiz them right before a test? It's that age-old problem, right? How do you give every single student that one-on-one attention exactly when they need it? Well, that's the promise of Agentic AI. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about how this is way more than just a simple chatbot. Then, we'll get into why this actually matters for learning. We'll look at some amazing real-world examples. I'll even touch on how you could start building one yourself, and we'll wrap up with the big, tough questions about where all this is headed. Okay, let's get into it. Most of us have dealt with a chatbot, right? You ask a question, you get an answer. But agentic AI is, well, it's a whole different ballgame. So what's actually the difference here? Think of it this way. A standard chatbot is reactive. It just sits there waiting for you to tell it what to do. But an agentic AI is proactive. It doesn't just wait. It understands the bigger goal, it makes a plan, and it actually takes initiative to help you get there. It's a fundamental shift. And here's the more formal definition, which really nails it. The magic words are act autonomously and understands the user's goal. It's not just a tool that follows orders, it's more like a partner that gets the context of what you're trying to do. You can really boil it down to these three key things. First, autonomy. It can work on its own without you having to constantly poke it. Second, adaptability. This is huge. It actually learns from its interactions and gets better over time. And finally, goal orientation. It's programmed with a clear objective like helping a student master calculus, and it stays focused on that goal. Okay, so what? All this tech talk is cool, but how does it actually help a student who's, staring at a textbook and just not getting it? Let's make this real. This is where it gets really exciting. Imagine a tutor that's available 24/7. It can tell when you're stuck and offer a different way to explain something. It can create custom quizzes just for you, hitting your specific weak spots over and over until you get it. And it can even give you a little encouragement, Hey, you nailed that last problem. It's true personalization. Now, this is a huge point, something the National Science Teaching Association really wants to make clear. The goal here is not to replace teachers, not even close. It's about creating an incredibly powerful new tool for teachers. The educator is still the architect, the one who designs and guides the AI to best help their students. And listen, this isn't some far-off sci-fi fantasy. This stuff is already happening. Let's look at a few amazing examples of how schools are using this technology right now. So over at Georgia Tech, they had this massive online class, and the teaching assistants were just buried in student questions. So they created an AI TA named Jill Watson. Jill basically lived in the online forums and handled all the common repetitive questions. The result? Student questions got answered way faster, and the human TAs could focus their brain power on the really tough, complex problems. Pretty smart, right? Then you have the Harris Federation in the UK. They used AI to solve two big problems: overwhelming teacher workload and language barriers. They used it to adapt lesson plans for different age groups on the fly and even provide real-time translation in the classroom. The impact was huge. It cut down on administrative busywork and gave teachers more time to actually teach. Now, take a look at this number, 3,000. What in the world could that be? That number, that's 3,000 students. At Ivy Tech Community College, these were 3,000 students who were on a path to failing. But an AI program analyzed data and was able to flag them as at risk within the first couple of weeks. Because they were identified so early, the college could jump in with support, and it made all the difference. That's proactive AI in action, and it is incredibly powerful. So after hearing all that, you might be thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, but it's probably way too complicated for me. But actually, this technology is getting more and more accessible. Let's walk through a quick roadmap of how an educator could get started. It really boils down to 4 main steps. First, you've got to define your purpose. What specifically do you want this thing to do? Then you pick your tool. There are user-friendly platforms out there now, like Google's Notebook LM. Step 3 is the most important. You create the knowledge base. You, the expert, feed it the high-quality sources you want it to use. And finally, you test it out, get feedback from students, and keep tweaking it to make it better. So we've seen what agentic AI is and what it can do right now. But for our last section, let's zoom out and think about the really big picture and some of the profound questions that come with this territory. This quote really captures the paradigm shift we're talking about. For years, we've thought about AI as a tool we plug into our existing systems. But with agentic AI, the idea is that the AI will start to run the entire process itself. Imagine an AI that doesn't just help with homework, but actually manages a student's entire personalized learning plan from day one. That's where this is going. And that, of course, brings us to our final and maybe most important question. As these AI systems get more and more autonomous, who's on the hook when they get something wrong? Is it the developer who coded it, the teacher who set it up, the school that bought the software? There are no simple answers here, but it's a conversation we absolutely have to be having as we step into this wild new frontier of learning.